Hello and welcome to another episode of Back to Brit Pop. It's me, Chris. On this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Ed Borrie of Smash. Smash were formed in the late 1980s in Welwyn Garden City. Hailed as being new wave by the musical press at the time, they had some great success. Ed talks to me about life in Smash, what he's been up to since with writing new material, and we talk a bit about the amazing documentary Flawed is Beautiful, which came out in 2016 and was directed by Adam Foley. If you've not seen that documentary, please seek it out. It's on Amazon Prime at the moment. It's brilliantly put together. And just a heads up before I play the interview, there is obviously some fruity language, a couple of C-bombs, so just so you know. I hope you really enjoy the interview. Ed is on top form. As per usual as well, I'll be back at the end to talk about how you can support the podcast. But in the meantime, here's Ed. Welcome to the podcast, Ed Borrie. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Chris. Thanks for asking me to come on.
How's your last 12 months been, or dare I ask, how's it been for you?
Well, it's kind of okay for me. I've got a wonderful fiance, and her children are here, and my children come up every couple of weeks. So there's still a lot of people in my life, and there's still a lot of hugs and touching. So, you know, I feel very grateful for that. And, you know, I can imagine if you were on your own and you didn't have that touch, that would have been pretty tough.
Yeah. I think
the most distressing thing in the past 12 months has been watching this disgraceful government, you know, lie and cheat and steal and humiliate us with all their, you know, every day is a good day to bury bad news with this government. It's been incredible. I haven't felt so much rage since Thatcher was in power.
Yeah. I think every day is another shocking revelation. It's kind of like screaming into the abyss at the moment. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't really know. It's almost like we have a version of Trump's America here. You know, it's just completely.
I know. I mean, as I say, it's been feeling like it was back when Thatcher was in power, and the fury I have inside about this. It's good for songwriting, though.
Yeah, I imagine it is. Yeah. Well, what have you been up to most recently? You had some new material or some solo material that you've been working on. Is that sort of songwriting still something that you're doing sort of every day, or try to do as much as possible?
Yeah. And you know, the past 12 months in the Zoom meetings, you can play the guitar you mute yourself, Chris. You can play the guitar in a Zoom meeting.
Oh yeah, I've got to try this.
If it's video on, I lay the guitar across my lap and play it like a steel guitar, so they can't see it. They can still see my top half, and I'm tingling away. And in actual fact, I rewrote "I Want to Kill Somebody" in a Zoom meeting, just a couple of new chords.
And you mentioned there about finding new things to write about, or at least having inspiration to write new songs. But are you finding that the writing, is it different now?
Maybe there's a little less momentum now, but it is pretty much the same. It's, you know, I write words down on paper or on my phone. I twiddle away on the guitar and come up with some nice melodies, and then I stick them together. And then something else comes out of that. I mean, the main difference over the past 2 years is that I don't rehearse every week with a band.
I suppose having less musicians around you, does that help or hinder you in terms of the creation process?
It makes no difference at all.
Are you finding that the current political landscape of things then is just like spurring you on in terms of the content then, or do you find different things to write about, or can you without that kind of background?
Yeah, I mean, when Smash broke up for the third or fourth time, I said to our old manager, I said, I can't stop writing songs. And he said, that's because you're a songwriter. Yeah. And left it at that. So, Chris, I'll just carry on writing songs for my own therapy, or, you know, it's always nice to share them, but I just like sitting here playing guitar.
Where did it all kind of begin then for you, Ed, in terms of that spark of imagination to be able to think that you could write, and maybe even just did that go hand in hand with like picking up the guitar and learning an instrument?
I always wanted to be in a band, but I didn't think about writing the songs. The very, very early days, I guess I'd play the guitar and someone else would write the words. But I think that changed quite quickly when I began to have a lot to say. So then I'd play the guitar and write the words.
Were you kind of influenced by anyone specifically in terms of like the writing side of things? Was it like a musical household for you as well?
Well, growing up, I've got two older brothers. So in the living room, my mum would be playing Simon and Garfunkel and the Stones and the Beatles. And then my oldest brother would be playing the Doors and the Velvet Underground and the Stooges and Genesis. I like to slip in a Genesis quote now and again, even though I'm not very fond of them. And my other brother would be playing Slade and Blondie and Soft Cell.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a tape player or a record player of my own, but I liked, on the TV, the music programs. I mean, I really liked ABC and A Flock of Seagulls and Heaven 17, pop music, basically.
Yeah.
I liked catchy pop music.
And when did it kind of, like, the realization that you had some sort of songwriting ability? Was there, like, can you remember your first song that you penned?
No. I think the first song I penned would have been with Salvatore, who went on, and he would have been the singer at the time in Smash, but he went on to be the bass player, and I wrote and sang the songs. But no, I can't remember. But I love, occasionally I'll remember one of those old songs, and they're so lovely, aren't they? The sweet innocence of those first, couple of chords and the first line. One of them was called 100 U's, another one was called Happy. They're just great, teenage songs.
Yeah.
I Don't Want Nobody Else was one of them. I don't want nobody else. Yeah, I'm 17.
That sort of optimistic outlook. Yeah, I know that. I mean, you guys rehearsed. I think you were relentlessly rehearsing in Welwyn Garden City, where you kind of formed. As a three-piece, did you have like an idea of kind of what you wanted to achieve within your sort of musical career, if you could call it that at that stage?
No, I don't. I mean, I certainly didn't. I really don't think we did. I don't think we've thought further than the next flyer for the next gig or the next demo tape. I mean, I certainly didn't. It turned out I'm not a career musician. It wasn't. I didn't think it was going to be my job.
Was there a point when the momentum started to kick in and you started to get the interest from, labels and things like that? Did you kind of get together and think this is happening, or did you have the conversations about, did you want it to happen actually? Because you kind of were against that kind of the commercial and the product. You were such a homegrown DIY type outfit, and yet the sort of corporateness of record labels. Was that something you decided you had to make a decision that's actually you wanted to pursue? I
don't really know what happened there. We had our drummer Rob's brother was helping us. He was our manager, and he'd helped us get some demos together. And so I think he took all of that on his shoulders. It wasn't concerning to me. I mean, I guess I wanted a record deal so I could make records.
Yeah. I guess from what you're saying, it wasn't that important who you signed to. It's just the fact that you wanted to get your music out to a bigger audience.
Well, it became important who we signed to, because we eventually signed to Dave Boyd at High Rise Records, and I heard one of your guys on the podcast, was it from Embrace?
Yeah,
talking about Dave Boyd, yeah, and he was fantastic. And basically, the bottom line is that when Dave Boyd got interested in us, a few other people got interested in us, and we asked what the guy from Polydor. We said, "Would you release a single called Lady Love Your Cunt?" And he said, "Oh no, maybe not." And we're like, "Okay, see you later, mate." Because Dave Boyd's going to release a single called Lady Love Your Cunt. and David was fantastic. The whole team at High Rise Records were fantastic. So I like to think that the Spice Girls paid for my musical career. We were really well looked after because David just got Virgin to pay all the bills, and it was brilliant. I couldn't ask for anything more from a record label.
I mean, a lot of stories I've heard and from the guests we've had on the podcast is that the initial support is good, and you are given free reign essentially for the first album. Is that something you can testify to, that you're given freedom basically to create something and put it out, but it gets trickier as it progresses in terms of second and third albums?
We were given free reign, but I listened to the guy from Biz on your show, and it probably would have been better if we hadn't been given free reign, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Or at least if we'd been given some guidance, because we went on tour and then we went into a residential studio, and I think it would have been better if we'd come back to Hertfordshire and recorded in our old studio with Andy. Yeah, it was difficult. It was very I mean, have you got that album, Chris? Have you got Self-Abused?
Yes, I've got the album. Yeah, I've got it. That's the thing.
It's not an easy listen, is it, Chris?
No, but that's the thing. I mean, at the time, yeah. Well, I know what you mean, but for me at the time, it was exciting, and it was the perfect music for me. I was on.
Really? I mean, I have people have written to me saying it helped me through my A levels or O levels, and I'm like, bloody hell, really?
Well, I always say I was into everything, and I think I'd been a metaler, you see, from my early years.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that would work. Yeah.
So I was listening before I would say became musically mature. Not to say that heavy metal and rock isn't mature, but you either kind of migrate from that or you stay with it, I think, and that's kind of what I can gauge from like metal fans. But I was listening to thrash and death metal and stuff like that. With my brother was a big influence, and then I sort of got into a bit more the British scene and the grunge thing, obviously. And then, but yeah, anything that was raw, I kind of gravitated to. But then as things went on, I went country, but as you do. But you sort of, I found all that exciting. I just found everything about the music scene in the 90s, early 90s, and then just really exciting, interesting. I was at college, it was the perfect time for me,
I think Smash was and is quite niche. It's highly charged, it's very political, and I don't think it was never going to be Brit Pop, Chris. It was never going to shift a lot of units. The songs, there was no, I fucking heard this phrase. I didn't even know what it meant, but I heard it again. There was no top line. There was no formula. There was no kind of connivance in the songwriting. We just wrote songs that we wanted to, we all had jobs. And then on a Wednesday, we'd go to a rehearsal room, write a song about killing politicians, and go to work the next day. It wasn't like a formulaic songwriting that was designed to shift units.
So you toured, and I mean, that must have been exhausting. But is it something that you just loved as well?
It's not really, is it, Chris? You sit in a van for 8 hours and then you go and play for like an hour. It's not that tiring, is it? Who's going to tell you that's tiring? You eat ginsters and drink super malts all day, smoke fags.
This was your ideal lifestyle then?
Yeah. Sleeping on people's floors. We slept on people's floors until at the Windsor Old Trout, my lung collapsed. And then the management thought perhaps we'd better book them into a hotel.
Oh, God.
And the next night we were in Manchester, and I went to the doctors, and he says, you've got a collapsed lung. And then the next night we were in Hull, so I went to hospital and had it expirated. And then in the afternoon we recorded Shame for Top of the Pops with a freshly expirated lung.
And did you feel quite good? I mean, was it a good feeling?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was proper. This studio in Hull, because you have to re-record your stuff for, unless you're Chesney Hawkes, you have to re-record your stuff for Top of the Pops. I think he's the only one that ever got caught not doing it. So we went into this tiny studio in Hull and re-recorded Shame for Top of the Pops. It was brilliant. I love that sort of stuff.
Was it a career ambition then to be on Top of the Pops, or was this just something you felt, if you're off...
No, it wasn't a career ambition. It was a 12-year-old boy's ambition, but it wasn't in the career.
I mean, early 90s and all throughout the 90s, it was. Did you see it as a rite of passage for your kind of music as well, and something that Top of the Pops was in a way paving a way in a slight way, because they were having bands on that hadn't released any music. I mean, Menswear being one of them. You were first in that respect, I'm guessing, without the single release.
Yeah, brilliant. Rick Blackseal was brilliant. We were on tour, and our radio plugger Scott Peering brought Rick Blackseal to see us in Luton at this kind of sports hall in Luton, and then a couple of weeks later he had us on Top of the Pops.
Was Simon Mayo there? Was it who else would have been presenting it at that time?
Anybody else caught up in Operation U Tree? You can cut that bit out if you like, Chris. I don't know who the DJ was that night, or the VJ or whatever. But Tim Booth, we met Tim Booth. That was really nice. He was very encouraging.
Yeah.
And our drummer's claim to fame, he'll always pull you up if you're trying to big yourself up. He'll say, "Yeah, have you had a wee next to a BG?"
That is an accolade, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got something similar. I did have a wee next to Chris Martin, but that, I mean, it's not quite the same. Quite, they both sing falsetto. I mean,
and I'm sure you use it to the best of as best you can.
Oh,
have you had a wee next to Chris Martin? Yeah,
gets me into all the places.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Brit Pop, and actually, when you look at bands like Smash and that, the new wave of new wave as it was penned by the musical press at the time, I'm guessing. I mean, did you guys, in terms of fashion and what you looked like and how you were presented on those in that sort of media, well, definitely preceded the Brit Pop scene. Did you see that kind of starting to develop as you were sort of going through your early career?
We were alive between 93 and 95 in the sort of greater public eye.
Yeah.
And I think, I think where we came from was, kind of Nirvana, Pixies, the kind of dark days of grunge. And, about 93, 94, that was still okay, but it was the tail end of it. And, by mid 94, people just wanted to snort cocaine and sing about nursery rhymes, didn't they?
Well, I definitely wouldn't put you in the Britpop pigeonhole, but you preceded it. I think you influenced it in terms of fashion, the style, and I think the way that like the musical press, they kind of covered guitar bands. That's what I think and how I remember it, at least.
Okay. That'd be nice. Yeah. I mean, our drummer was the fashion. Rob, the drummer, was. I mean, when we in about 1991, Rob managed a shop. He had a shop selling vintage clothes and American rags, and so Rob dressed us basically, and so Rob was the fashion guy. So he I guess he preempted a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then these animal men were wearing the Adidas gear. We wore a bit of Adidas gear. We knew some rascals in Manchester who took Adidas gear out the back of the shop for us.
Your experience with the music press then, because this is another sort of big subject for us in terms of the the podcast and the guests we've had on is the love-hate relationship, or at least some of the coverage in Enemy and Melody Maker. What was it like for you? What was your experience with dealing with those publications?
It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. We had a great press and promotions company. We were with Hall or Nothing, who had the Manics and the Radiohead, among many others. And our contact there was Cafe St. Luce. And we had a great time with the press. I mean, Stephen Wells and Martin Goodacre came on tour with us. You know, Stephen was a journalist for the NME. I mean, we had the NME on tour with us, basically.
And so getting on the cover, would that have been something that you would have been another sort of tick of the box for you in terms of, I don't know, some sort of musical highlight, career highlight?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And my brother's got all 4 or 5 or 6 or however many front covers we did downstairs in his basement. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to see. It's amazing.
What are you looking to do next then, Ed, in terms of music?
I'm just the next release is a 4-track EP that I've recorded at Mick Jones's studio, The Bunker, with some heroes of mine. So I'm getting that together. It's getting mastered at the moment.
And would the goal be to tour with that?
No. I'd like to do a few gigs. I wouldn't really like to do a tour.
It's
3 gigs, maybe 5, Chris. 5.
push the boat out.
Yeah.
The documentary is a really good insight into, I mean, all that footage as well that's there as well. I mean, how did that come about? Did it were you approached to do it, or was it an idea that you all had together?
No, we were approached to do it by an amazing guy called Adam Foley, who had written a book called Straight Outta Collumpton, which is where he lived in Exeter. And he'd just written about his growing up years, and Smash and these Animal Men, along with quite a few other bands, were part of his growing up. And then he decided to, you know, he'd written a book, now he wanted to make a movie. So he did a load of interviews with us and all the journos at the time and all the movers and shakers at the time, and made the most moving documentary. You know, it's an amazing documentary, full of the highs and the lows, and there's a little bit of hope at the end. It's fantastic. And at the end of it, we played Heaven with these Animal Men and sold it out, and it was just such a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere.
Would you do it all again, Ed?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't regret a thing.
Is there anything you would do differently?
Well, Smash ended because of my increasing drug addiction. But I don't think I'd even change that. I mean, it's just how it is. And you know, the recovery from drug addiction I'm very, very happy with. It's made me a far better person, and I'm very, very happy today, and back in touch with both Rob and Salve and lots of other musicians and people from the past, and full of new songs and experiences, and yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Would you give any advice to any young bands that are like starting up, but that are doing this sort of, you know, pursuing a career in music as well, in terms of what would be the best approach?
Well, my approach was Keith Richards and Lou Reed were my idols. I wouldn't recommend that as your approach.
Well,
you know, I built my life around being a heroin addict, and then at the age of about 33, I discovered that when he was singing "Waiting for My Man," he was actually singing about speed. So I was like, for fuck's sake, I built my whole career on the wrong drug.
Oh God! And you can't really go back.
I know. Wouldn't change a thing, Chris.
I wanted to quickly ask you about the video shoot for "I Want to Kill Somebody," and it's a great video, and it obviously epitomizes everything about Smash, really, in what, 3 minutes, I guess. What was that day like? Because I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
Well, again, that's thanks to David Boyd, Stephen Wells, the NME journalist and video maker, actually, because he did make our video for Shane, just said, lads, I need $5,000, shoot a video. And we were like, okay, I'll go and ask David. And we had we were probably, I think we'd just come off a tour. So we had all our lights and staging, and it was done in the grounds of this strange house that I was living in at the time. The house was called Folly. Next door was called Farce, or we might have been called Farce. Anyway, and we just set up the stage and the lights and shot that video with, we wanted to kill some fucking Tories because they were and still are horrible, horrible people.
So that kind of like the political content of everything was just something you felt that you always had to, was at the forefront of your music, and
it was, and anger and fury. I mean, the song Self-Abused, if only one person told the truth, we could do away with news, share each other's views on matters of fact. And that's 25, 27 years old, and it's more true today than ever. If only one person, there was supposed to be 750,000 fucking lunatics marching in London on Saturday, or was it 10,000? And were there 8 police dead, or were there 8 police injured, or were there no police injured? It's just complete bullshit. When we were on Naked City, we did Bang Bang Bang, which was about the killing of 3 IRA members in Gibraltar. And although we played it on Naked City, they did edit out all the juicy bits.
Yeah. So
if you were in the studio, you heard the full song, but you didn't if you were watching.
Ed, it's been fantastic to speak to you this evening. I'll let you go. Can you give us an exclusive on the EP?
Well, Mick Jones plays guitar on it. He plays bass on it. He plays some very, very strange keyboards on it. And the lead track, maybe next time, has got a female singer on it. It's got my stepson's girlfriend singing on it, and it's absolutely amazing. It's one of the best songs I've ever written.
And in terms of release, do you think that's something for next year?
No, it'll be released as soon as possible on my label, which is called Esprit de Corps, which is the last 3 or 4 Smash albums have been released on my label. Smash do have one gig booked at a festival this summer, a local festival, and Rob got us the gig, and we're just going to make it a little punky little set, old school. We are a garage band after all.
Ed, it's been fantastic to speak to you. I really appreciate you taking the time and to go over.
Thank you, Chris.
And good luck with the EP. I'll drop you a line, and hopefully you let me know when it's out. So I'll keep it on your Facebook page anyway, because you'll drop the information there. So is that how you're sort of reaching people now? Is via the Smash Facebook page?
Yeah, on my own Facebook page. Yeah, it's all Chris. Somehow I'm an admin on 4 pages, and I've no idea. I mean, because when Salvatore left Smash for the first time, me and Rob did a band called Boswood. So I've got a Facebook page for that, one for Smash, one for Flawed is Beautiful, one for me. It's just
your social media icon.
I'm massive. Chris, it was great to speak to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for asking.
Thanks, Ed.
Cheers, Chris.
Massive thanks to Ed for joining me on the podcast again. I really enjoyed talking about Smash and his experiences in the 90s and beyond. Here's the boring bit of the show. I'm not sure what to do with this bit. It's kind of like a weird, repetitive thing I do, and so sorry about that. But again, if you haven't already, you can support the podcast in loads of ways. You can follow on social media, so there's Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and also if you haven't done already, big things that support podcasts in this like massive overcrowded podcast world is writing reviews and giving star ratings on Apple Podcasts. For some reason it just basically boosts you up the charts and you may get noticed. But if you haven't done that, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. And I know I say that every week. And the other thing I say every week is if you want to buy me a virtual coffee, you can. It's £3 and the link is in the show notes, which you can find on your podcast app that you're listening to this on. So that's the ramble over. I'll try and think of something to make it more interesting in future, but I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to do that. But I hope you've enjoyed the show and thanks for all your support. See you on the next episode.